So
Mhm.
the question is, most enterprises stay away from open source, citing vulnerabilities and other concerns. Although I feel this is like half-sided question, this is like
Mhm.
a bit of an older approach, because the newer approach is much more different. But I would like for you to tell us about that, like why those vulnerabilities exist in the first place and how things are changing in today's world.
Well, I don't actually agree with that question. If you look at most companies, most large enterprises, they use a lot of open source. If they don't know that they're using open source, that's a real big problem. And that's why it's so challenging when they have those vulnerabilities, right? Uh, so if you look at the Linux Foundation, so the Confidential Computing Consortium is part of the Linux Foundation. You see that there's a whole bunch of companies that are part of that, over a thousand of the largest enterprises and companies, startups are part of that. And just basically everyone is using open source. Uh,
Right.
Open source, some people might think that open source is not secure because it's open by default. So
Hmm.
somebody can identify those vulnerabilities.
Right.
And it's true. It's a two-way street. So yes, both the good people, the good hackers, the white hackers, can
Exactly.
find and solve those issues, and also the malicious ones, they can find those issues. So it's a
Right.
open source has its challenges, of course, in terms of security, but
Hmm.
it's much more. It's I think it's much better to work in the open to solve those issues, and the community is so powerful. So
Hmm.
let's just talk about Drupal, for example. If there's a
Hmm.
vulnerability in Drupal, I can count on the community to help me to solve that. And everyone helps each other. If I have a
Right.
proprietary system, if there's an issue with that, who is going to solve it? You have to solve it, right? It's
Right.
your responsibility. But if you have a community behind that, everybody can help each other. So I think actually open source makes it easier and better to be more secure. And of course,
Right.
enterprises should work together with each other and with the open source community to help with disclose and develop solutions to those vulnerabilities as well.
Definitely. And that is one thing I definitely again wanted to highlight because things are changing now. There was a time
Yeah.
when enterprises used to say open source is not for everyone. And now they're actually
Yeah.
realizing that literally open source is the way to go. And they have actually realized it's not realizing. That was like a 2010 thing. If I say they're realizing, they have actually realized. And literally every single project has a ton of open source involved in it, and through a lot of programs they're actually contributing back, and that's one of the biggest things. We'll go into structuring a program very soon and talk about all sorts of things to
Mhm.
get involved, because enterprises have a nice way to
Yeah.
go and give back to the open source world, and that is where these programs come in.
Yeah.